Hi guys, welcome back to another episode of Teen Talk Central. In this week's episode, we're looking back, moving forward, and reflecting on this year and restarting and resetting for the next. If this is something that you are wanting to learn more about or just want to come and support, then continue listening to this week's episode of Teen Talk Central. Hello, my lovely people. It's Mia back with another episode. I'm so sorry that I did not upload last week. It was just Thanksgiving and everything was very chaotic, and I just didn't have the time to record. Honestly, I procrastinated, which is not the best, but it's okay because I'm back and better than ever. So welcome back to another episode. I can't believe it's December and it's almost the new year, guys, which means new year, new me, new reset, and we're just going to be talking about how we can reflect on the past year, what we've changed, what we've learned, what we've maybe survived, and turning this reflection into pure intention on how we can be the better versions of ourselves moving forward with the year. So, I feel like this year, it's coming to an end, and for me it's a really weird mix of nostalgia and stress. For me, I'm finding out where I'm getting into college, and that's super stressful, but there's also a bunch of nostalgia that's kind of going through my brain. It's like at the beginning of this year I was still a junior, and that's just so crazy to think about, that I started as a junior and I'm ending as a senior knowing where I'm going to college, which I can't even believe. And I just think there's also the stress of finals and tests and projects, and I feel like there's this pressure on all of us as teenagers. So just remember that everyone is in the same shoes as you, and it is okay. I feel like there's also the pressure to fix everything in January and just kind of reset and become a completely new person, which is honestly completely impossible. I think if you want to build habits to become a better person in January, you have to start now. So by the time you hit January, it's going to be 2 to 3 weeks in, and you'll have a better habit and a better routine for yourself, because if you want to try to start in January, most likely it's not going to happen. I think like 90% of people who have New Year's resolutions don't even follow through until the beginning of February. Like, they can't even last a month. So I think if you want to start a habit, you have to start now so you can prove to yourself that you can do it. I also think that with this, we have to not judge our past, and we can't say, oh, I'm not going to make a New Year's resolution because I know I'm not going to follow through. That is the wrong mentality. You have to acknowledge the fact that maybe you haven't followed through every time, but then you also have to now follow through with yourself if you really do want to become the best version of yourself. And I think noticing growth that you didn't realize was happening is also important. I think some people gain really good habits that maybe they didn't think, or it wasn't intentional, but it's kind of naturally happened. Like, for example, maybe you drink more water throughout the day. It's a small thing, but that's really important for your well-being. So that could be something that you kind of subconsciously learned, and you kind of prove to yourself, okay, I can do a habit, and I can, stick to something if I really do it. And these are basically just like showing how small changes honestly count as really big wins. I think the small things that you do that kind of go unnoticed end up helping you create bigger and better habits, because different things are compiling on top of each other, and you are able to do something, or it shows that you're able to do something, and you can kind of start to scale these small habits into larger things. So for example, if your goal is to be fit by the end of 2026, if you drink water every day, it proves that, okay, I can, consistently eat or drink something, and then maybe it's like, oh, let me cut out some sugar, let me do this, let me add some this, and then these small things add up for really, really big wins. And something I think we need to discuss is that we build confidence by seeing our life as a story with meaning, not a bunch of random events. So you kind of have to see how this flows within your life story and how this impacts you, right? I think a lot of people, they just think, oh, it's just drinking water, it's not going to change me. But if you really think about it, it's like, okay, if I'm drinking water, I'm keeping myself hydrated, so maybe I can, keep myself going harder on these workouts because I'm staying more hydrated and doing all these things. And if you start to see your life as a storybook, it also becomes more, I think, interesting and entertaining for yourself to be able to fulfill and continue these habits. Next is, I think we need to not make reflections only about regretting things. I think sometimes we are put in this place to think that reflection means that you've done something bad or something not good. But honestly, reflections can and should be things that are reflecting on good and bad things in your life. Some guiding questions that you might be able to ask yourself is, what did I learn? What did I handle that I didn't think I could? What helped me grow? What made me genuinely happy? These are just some questions that I always ask in my reflections to myself, because it's not seeing everything from a negative perspective. It's not, what did I mess up this month, or why did this go so wrong? It's more wondering, how can I grow? What did I learn from this month? And I think that also helps you see what you can do better. And that's just what reflection is. Reflection is not supposed to be only negative things. It should also be reflecting on the good moments, and potentially how can you continue those good moments throughout the rest of your days. Now, how do we plan for the new year without being a quote-unquote new you? I think there's this idea on social media that you have to completely reinvent yourself. I don't think we should be aiming for necessarily a full personality reset, because that's just impossible to keep up, right? You can't go one day from being one person and then the next day being someone completely different. I think you can't do that, and really nobody can. You can maybe fake it for a couple days, but then eventually, like I said, you're going to revert back to old habits, which is why if you do maybe want to be the better version of yourself, you have to start now, because then those habits will maybe be a little bit stronger than they are right now. And you should be going into the new year saying, what do I want to continue, not what do I want to start. Because again, it's just so hard to introduce a completely new habit and expect yourself to just be able to get along with it right away. And I think in choosing new habits, you should choose intentions over extreme resolutions. So, for example, it should just, if your goal is to maybe work out more, the goal shouldn't be gym 6 times a week. It should be movement every day, and it gives you a bit more choice, and it's a bit more broad, so you're not putting as much pressure on yourself to, for example, drastically go from no movement at all and you never went to the gym or anything, to all of a sudden forcing yourself to go to the gym 6 times a week, which is really hard to do and probably not one of the best things that you can do for yourself in terms of your fitness journey. And I can do a whole nother episode on like my fitness journey and everything under the sun with that. But yeah, for example, another thing I can think about is more peace instead of no stress. I think obviously with our world and the time that we live in as teenagers, no stress is impossible, but you can always try to find more peace, or make peace for yourself throughout your day. For example, I like to journal and do a little meditation, stuff like that. Something like that can bring you more peace even in a life with a bunch of stress. And I think there's this idea that new beginnings motivate us, but only when goals feel realistic or aligned do we actually get that urge. I think a lot of people feel motivated, but they don't actually act on their motivation unless they have a reason to, which is why, monthly resets are a huge thing, or yearly resets are a huge thing. And I think social media just amplifies that feeling, which can be good, but you have to learn how to follow through and stick with that decision. And I guess last thing is that try to just keep going. I think there's this idea that once you start, you can stop or relax because you've gotten the habit. You just have to keep going, and not every day has to be perfect, but it's that consistency, not perfection. And you should also just brain dump before the start of the year. Things to keep, things to improve, things to let go of. I think those are really good basic journal prompts that can help you kickstart your new year reset. So I want this 2026 year for everyone to be for your growth, not be against it. And make sure you're not starting from zero, and start now so you can start the new year with, a couple weeks under your belt and you'll be a pro. Thank you guys so much for listening to this week's episode. I love you guys so much. If you ever have any episode recommendations, let me know on Instagram, Spotify, comments, or you can DM me. And I love you guys so much, and I'll see you guys next week. Bye.